Boom, I'm alive. What's going on, guys? How is everyone? Kind of a different episode today, something I thought I'd experiment with, see how you guys like it. Um, so, you guys would know that when I came back at the start of the year doing the podcast, I committed to a fortnightly podcast with a guest, and that's been really good. It's been really easy to manage. The main reason I decided to do that was because I was fully focused on competing in Ironman this year, trying to break 10, and then I've got a few other projects going on as well. And I've been pretty transparent with you guys in terms of how difficult it can be to organize guests and when guests cancel and trying to get ahead and bank episodes. Like, it's a lot to go on managing a company as well, all of those things. So I just decided one guest a fortnight. Even if someone cancels, I'd be able to pull in someone. Be able to have 2 or 3 episodes in the bank. Perfect. And it's gone really, really well. No issues. I think the quality of the episode's been fantastic since coming back. Been really happy with the guests. Given me a little bit of time to actually prep for some guests. Normally I don't do a lot of prep, but every once in a while now I'll jot down a few questions, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it's been going so well that I wanted to test going back to weekly episodes. However, I didn't want to, because now things are really starting to ramp up for Ironman Australia. I didn't want to I didn't want to go back to doing 2 guests. I just thought you're just walking straight back into the same spider's web, right? Same trap. So I was like, what can I do? Like, I love doing the podcast. I love talking to you guys. Like, every episode we do, more and more people listen, more and more downloads, people interact. Like, everything is positive about the pod. So I was like, how can I do more without increasing the stress levels? And I was like, why don't I just do a solo episode on the alternating fortnight? So guest week A, solo week B. And I was like, okay, I could do that, but what would I talk about? And then I was like, I looked at my calendar and there's some stuff on there that you guys don't know about in terms of events. And I was like, you've got 3 or 4 really, really cool, interesting things that not a lot of people have done on the calendar. And it's not just Ironman. So, like, the first one is the sub 10 hour Ironman, and the last one hopefully will be qualifying for Kona over the course of this year, maybe even to sort of the start of 2026, depending on qualifications and whatnot. But there are some stuff on there that people haven't done before, some interesting triathlon-based events that we're trying to work on getting a television deal, and we're working on a few different things, right? Obviously, we've got the YouTube happening, all that stuff, and I was like, why not just talk about the unusual training you have to do to accomplish these goals? And I was like, that's not an awful idea. So I thought, let's start with the sub 10 hour Ironman. We'll call it the sub 10 Diaries. And just every fortnight, we'll jump on, break down the training, let you guys know where I am physically, mentally. If you've got any questions, hit me up on Instagram and I'll answer them on the pod, break stuff down. Really good deep dive into some key sessions, all these sorts of different things. And I was like, okay, let's just test it. Now, full transparency, I actually recorded the first attempt at this episode on Tuesday, and it was a fucking disaster. It was so bad. Mostly because I just didn't know what the structure should be, how to do it. And I really just I shouldn't even say I recorded the episode. I hit record, but I was just throwing shit at the wall and seeing what stuck, what felt good, what didn't. And originally the idea was, let's compare current Ironman block versus previous Ironman block. I was like, that's a really simple way to it's just raw numbers, raw data, blah, blah, blah. But when I was doing it, and maybe it's me and I just haven't figured out the best way to do it, I didn't think it translated very good to audio. I thought it was a little bit confusing. It was a little bit just sort of... I didn't think I was able to articulate myself very well in terms of the difference in coaching, difference in session structure, weekly structure. Like, all of these things have changed. And I just felt like I was a bit wishy-washy, a bit dribbly, a bit just not my usual self. And I didn't think the episode lived up to the standards not that we drive standards home or anything on this pod, but I do pride myself on when I'm having a conversation with someone, I'm listening, I'm attentive. I think I ask relatively good questions. I'm a naturally curious person. I don't mind disagreeing, having conflict with people. I think I do all of those things quite well. But with this podcast, weirdly, the one by myself, it didn't go. I felt like it didn't go well. So I'm going to re-record it today, this one that you're listening to right now, and hopefully it goes a little bit better. Based on the first 5 minutes, I'm already feeling a lot better about it. And I've recorded 2 other podcasts this week, so maybe I've just got a bit more of a groove happening. But let me tell you guys sort of the basic structure of what I'm thinking, and then any feedback you guys have got, comment, message me on Instagram, whatever. I'd love to hear it. If there's anything you guys want to hear about, let me know. Happy to do it. There is no filters. There's no hiding anything. There is just like, what do you guys want to know? We'll talk about it. So what this episode will be about, so obviously training, dig into the training. Because we need to catch up from sort of where the start of the build, I'll run through this one pretty quick. And then next episode we'll deep dive a little bit more, if that makes sense. We'll sort of go into a bit more of the data. The goal is to complete a sub 10-hour Ironman. Then there are sub goals within that. So I'd love to swim close to 63 minutes. 63 to 60 minutes would be unreal. Bike as close to 5 hours as possible. I think closer to 5:15 is realistic, but I need to be sub 5:30, absolutely for sure. One that this one means as much to me as the sub 10, I think, is I really want to run the marathon strong. Like, even if I get off the bike and let's just say there's a mechanical and I get in a crash or whatever, knock on wood, and I get off the bike in 6.5 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, right? Just sub 10 is impossible to accomplish. I still want to run like a 3:30, 3:40 marathon and want to run it feeling really good, really strong. If I did that and didn't hit sub 10, I think I'd be nearly as proud of myself. And that's something that I'm really cementing in my head, is no matter the situation when I get off that bike, I cannot have a temper tantrum. I cannot be defeated. I cannot be upset. I must go out there and execute that marathon and run that marathon as strong as possible. That is something I'm really being very diligent about in my process, is keeping that thought alive in my head that I will not, even if sub 10 is off the cards, I will not quit and I will run home strong. So that is absolutely something I want to do. And the last one is my weight. I'm a bigger dude. I'm 6'1". Without tracking any calories, like without dedicated training, if it was just like normal sort of go to the gym a couple of times a week, couple of runs, things like that, and not tracking any calories, I'd sit like 86 to 88 kilos, sub 20% body fat, right? That's just sort of where I sit naturally. I really want to, and I'm working with Lauren, my sports dietitian, I really want to sort of get down to 78 kilos, which is it's a pretty big drop. Like I'm in the 83s, 82s now. So well and truly on track. But 78 kilos, put a carb load in, a bunch of fluid, you're going to be sort of 80, 81 on the start line. So that's kind of where I'm at. Previous Ironman, I have been anywhere from 87 to 90 kilos on the start line. Cairns last year, I was about 87. Bustleton the year before, 88, 89. My first Ironman, I was about 90, 91. So I'm a big boy. But we are, and coming from a weightlifting background too. So a lot of it was, not a decent amount was muscle, but we're slowly sort of morphing the body into a bit more of an endurance athlete body, which is it's a good process. And then just going to answer the main question I get on Instagram and everything is why I changed coaches. So we'll deep dive into that a little bit, and then that's going to be the guts of the episode. So let's talk about the goal, and we'll break it down, and just that'll provide context for anyone who's new, anyone who doesn't follow me on Instagram. If you don't, it's down in the show notes. Give it a follow. I try and post training vlogs and all that stuff as often as possible. But the goal is a sub 10-hour Ironman. Um, Obviously, that is sort of the whole brand at the moment, is the pursuit of sub 10. And I've been very transparent in terms of I want to achieve it more than anything, but I am okay not achieving the goal if I go out and race my absolute best. If I do everything in training, if I tick every box, if I get on the start line at the right weight, if I do all the stuff if I do everything I can do, and it just doesn't happen on that day, I am so okay with that. I am so okay with that. But I'm not okay if I skip training, don't nail my recovery, come in a little bit heavy, go out too hot on the bike, whatever it might be. If I fuck up, then it'll eat me alive, right? So I think I've been really, really transparent with that, really, really good with that. So the goal is a sub 10-hour Ironman. I think the breakdown for me is going to be swimming about 63 minutes, doing about a 5:15 bike, and then I really think running like a 3:30, 3:40 marathon home. I think I could pull a 3:30 flat if if I'm up against the clock. I think I could hold on. I think 3:40 if it was just if I just needed to finish, I could do it. So if you look at that, that is what, 5 hours 15 plus 63 is 6, just call that 6 hours 20. Then you run a 3:30 marathon, that's 9:50, and then you got 10 minutes in transition. So there's not a lot of wiggle room. I really, 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 really need to nail that bike. Like, the bike is sort of going to make or break it if I do not. And I've deliberately picked Port Macquarie because I don't want it to be a given. I feel like if I had have gone, let's go to Busso, I feel like it would have been, I don't want to say not as deserved, because sub 10-hour Ironman is still a very, very hard thing to achieve no matter where you do it in the world. But a completely flat track, a track I know, I've raced Busso a few times. I'd have an extra 6 months of training, or 8 months of training. Yeah, I just don't. I don't think that was. I don't think that was the right choice. I think doing it, and yeah, I spoke to Matty Burton last year around Christmas, November, December, something like that, and I was like, "What do you reckon?" And he was like, he wanted me to do New Zealand. He was like, "Do New Zealand. It's a true course. Blood plasma will be high." Gave a whole bunch of reasons. I was like, "Yeah, that's a good call." And I just sort of sat there and I thought about it for a bit, and I was like, I live just outside of Newcastle, about an hour west of Newcastle. And I was like, Port Macquarie's 2 hours away. Like, maybe it's the hardest bike course. Cycling is my weakest leg. I was like, why not? If you're gonna do it, why not do it on arguably the hardest course in Australia? And so that's up for debate. Some people will push back on that and say something else. But for me, being a weaker cyclist on those dead roads, all the elevation, like, I really gotta work hard to get it. So that's how we decided on that. And then the run, like I just said, like, I want to run 3:30, 3:40. So that's kind of the breakdown. That's how we landed on Port Macquarie. That is how we landed on the times, etc. I think if you're a betting person, if you're at the tab, sub 10 would definitely be an outside horse. It definitely wouldn't be the favorite. I think if you're a smart bettor, you'd probably bet like 10:30 or something like that. But that's the logical part of my brain. But the competitive part of my brain's like, nah, it's like just all in, sub 10, that's it. So that's the goal. That's a bit of the breakdown of the goal, how, why, and how, and all that stuff. Let's get into the big one, why I changed coaches. So I just want it to be clear that nothing here is a reflection on either coach's coaching ability. Like, I've had both coaches on the podcast, Guy Crawford, Clayton Fattel. Love them both dearly. I'm still really, really good mates of Guy. We still talk relatively regularly. And Clayton and I, like, been on the podcast, get along a house on fire. But now we're forging this athlete coach-athlete relationship, which it's definitely this is the interesting thing about coach-athlete relationship. I think some coaches get their athlete to form to the system, and then they are able to just some athletes are just able to go with it, and athletes like myself don't all they do well physically with it, but mentally it's difficult. Now, that's obviously not a criticism because my training has gone up, like all my fitness level, all of my numbers are up in the last couple of months. But and Clayton will agree with this, is like I love math, right? Math makes sense to me. Numbers make sense to me. Like I am very, very good at being able to go, and I'll use some arbitrary numbers. 200 watts at 148 BPM equals X speed, right? So for me, all that is F equals ma, force equals mass times acceleration, and it is just an equation. So I can sit there and go, cool, if I need to ride 515 with 515, and I need my heart rate to be this, and I need to produce this speed, which is 36 kilometers an hour, this is the power I need to produce over this distance. And that is just for me, super simple math. Then you talk to really experienced guys like Clayton, like Guy, like Berto, like Caleb Noble, all these guys who I've had on the pod, I speak to them relatively regularly. They're all like, nah. And I don't know if that's a me thing where I'm like, do you guys just not get the math? Or if it's like, I'm wrong and the math just doesn't matter, you know? Because for me, it's just, yeah, like I said, it's just a math equation. And I just, sometimes it just, I feel like I'm speaking common sense and everyone else is speaking fucking French. But that's probably a me thing, right? Because I don't know any other athletes who sort of process problems and process information like I do, where it's just all math. And I even said, I was joking to Clayton yesterday. He was like, dude, you're just tired, relax, like you're crushing training, you're doing really, really well. And I was like, I'm not worried about the training, I'm worried about the fucking math, Clayton. And he just laughed. He was like, you'll be right, just keep training. And that, for me, the way my brain works, drives me fucking crazy, because I'm like, that is not a logical answer. But for 99.9% of athletes, that's a great answer. Like, just trust me, it's fine, everything's good, you'll be sweet. And it's not that there's any doubt in the system or the process. Like I said, everything is going well. It is just like it is just a clash of styles, I guess, is the best way to do it. Like, maybe I need to get on the Norwegian method, guys. I just fucking numbers into a spreadsheet and produce an Ironman. But yeah, it's just really interesting how you have to learn how to work with one another and how different people need different things. So it's super interesting. But back to the original question, little tangent there. Why did I change coaches? This isn't a decision I took lightly. This is, like I said, Guy and I are really, really good mates, and Guy and I got to get on really, really well on a personal level. Like, when we would have coaching calls, it would be 20 minutes talking coaching and then just us talking shit for an hour, which I love doing. And I really wanted to make sure I was making the right decision by changing. So I spent a lot of time talking to guys like, actually Caleb Noble gave me some great advice in terms of just things to look for, different things. And originally, I was going to self-coach. I was like, if I am not going to be coached by Guy, I'm going to do it myself. I don't want this pressure on anyone else. And when you say what pressure, whether people acknowledge it or not, there is a certain level of pressure that comes with the amount of social media I do, the podcast, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all that stuff. Like all I do all across all of those channels. I'm like, I'm going sub 10, and that person, whoever's coaching me, his name is attached to that. And if I fail, even if even if it's not their fault, even if they programmed all the sessions perfectly, they did all the math, everything was perfect, and I didn't do the sessions, and I was the reason it didn't happen, they still get the association of it, right? So there is a certain level of pressure with it. And I didn't want to put that on anyone else. I was like, so maybe I should just self-coach. Maybe I should do that. And originally that's what I was going to do. I was just going to sit down, write a program, have certain checkpoints. I was going to consult with some people. I was probably like, I didn't run it by Berto, but I probably would have chatted to him a lot more. I probably would have still consulted with Clayton. I'm super fortunate with the podcast that I've built some relationships of like really, really smart people across swim, bike, and run that I can go to. And sorry, I was just gonna have a quick drink. And I was just gonna self-coach, right? It became pretty evident pretty quickly that I'm probably not yet ready to self-coach, as I've been super super transparent for my mental health and the battles I have, etc. Every Ironman prep, I've had an issue with my mental health, whether that's just the training gets too hard and I start to get tired, and when I get tired, the first thing that happens is my mental health dips, right? There's like, if I'm not getting enough sleep, if I'm not eating correctly, it starts to dip. If I start skipping training sessions, it dips even more. And then it's just this snowball effect, right? And every single prep that's happened, I've missed probably, 7 to 10 days of quality training every single prep due to mental health. And I was like, okay, so I reevaluated and I was like, cool. So I think the goal should actually be to get through a whole prep mentally strong. And I was like, if you do that, then you can self-coach. Then you can have that conversation with yourself, and you want to put that additional pressure on yourself. But until you do that, I don't think it's a good idea. So I sat down, spoke to my partner, again, consulted with Caleb and Berto and a couple of other guys, and just sort of said, what do you guys reckon? And they were like, look, these are some things to look for in your training if you are going to switch, if you are going to leave a coach. And I was really, really adamant that I was like, I don't want to be one of these athletes that just switch every 6 months after every race, didn't get the result I want, chopped and changed. I was like, I want to find a coach that fucking understands me, understands the goal I want to get to, and can help me write a roadmap to achieve that. Because if they are not as fired up about the goal as I am, if they do not believe I can reach the goal, then what are we doing? Like, why are we wasting each other's time? So that was like, and Guy was all of those things. He was probably a little bit conservative, but he definitely sort of said like, yep, I see a path where we can get there, and etc. So I basically was like, said to the guy that I was consulting with, I was like, this is the problem. Swim and run, very, very good, like always getting better. Obviously it goes up and down, but like over the last 2 years, consistently improved. Very good. I feel like my bike has reached a level and it's plateaued, and I'm not sure if this is a me thing or if it's a programming thing or if it's a stimulus thing, or like, I don't know. So I sort of ran them through everything, and they were like, it honestly just sounds like you just need a change in stimulus. And I was like, okay, cool. So what would you recommend? And they're like, how long have you trained with guys? Like 2 years. And I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, they said pretty much as long as the coach you go to has some idea of what they're doing, just a change in stimulus, you will see a result. Now, the quality of coach will then affect how big and how long that change in stimulus, the effect of that change of stimulus lasts, right? And now, quite a few of them said you should go to Reedy, go to RPG. And I was like, yeah, like I feel like that is, it's a very like common sense choice, straight down the barrel. I contemplated going to PB3 with Berto and Chris, and Caleb's with him now. I think it's PB3 and Fat Duck are all doing something together. I contemplated that, and then I did already have this relationship with Clayton, and I it's umming and ahhing, and I was chatting to Clayton about it, and probably one of the swaying the one of the big points that swung me to Clayton was, number one, I love someone who's got as much confidence as me. Like, if you can talk the talk, like, I love it. I love someone who's not afraid to talk the talk. Um, Number two, in the most recent podcast we did, I deliberately asked him about, what are you doing to further your education? How are you getting better as a coach? And when he said he really gone away and worked with some people overseas on the bike, and I was like, that's really interesting. And we spoke about that offline as well. And I really admire people who are always getting better, who are always trying to get better. I don't care if it's work, if it's at home, if you're trying to build a better relationship, be a better father, mother, better athlete, better in, like, whatever you're trying to get better at, fucking figure skating, don't give a fuck. If you are constantly getting better at something and you're not just, this is the system, this is how we do it, I really admire that. So that sort of growth mindset I really appreciate it, and it really resonated with me because I see myself like, that's me. I am always, at least I think I am. I think I'm always trying to get better. Like, it's always top of mind. I'm like, how can I do this better? How can I refine? How can I get better at socials? Should I start doing YouTube? If I do YouTube, should I get a videographer? If I'm doing something athletic, cool. How do I do it the best? Like, I don't want to go and participate. Like, how do I fucking go and be like, this was a respectable result straight off the bat. Business, like, I've built really, really successful businesses and sold a couple of them. Like, whatever I do, I'm trying to get better at, and I need those people around me, and I really appreciate those people. So I felt like there was a lot of I felt a lot of things lined up. But at the end of the day, it's still a risk, right? So, like, I've only ever spoken to Clayton via text on the podcast. And yes, you get a much better vibe for people on the podcast. But you don't know what's under the hood, right? Like, a lot of people can talk the talk and not deliver, not walk the walk. Then I got chatting to Hamish, who's been on the podcast, Noah, Kai, Reese Lawler, all these boys. And they're all coached by Clayton and Dan Barry. Obviously, Dan's been on the podcast a couple of times. And I felt like with the relationship I had with all of those boys, that if they weren't happy with something, I would have picked up on it. I would have noticed incongruencies with what they said and their actions. I feel like I would have noticed, you said this, but this is what you did, or you did this and this is what you said. Those two do not line up. I felt like there would have been a hitch, but there wasn't. Everyone spoke very highly of him, and I decided it was a calculated risk, right? Like I said before, everything's just math for me. And the way I did this equation, and you guys might laugh, but like, everything in my mind, everything in my brain is math. Like, that's how I do everything. So what the equation I did was, if your swim, bike, and run all stay the same and doesn't improve, that is a net negative, because you are going to become a better cyclist. Like, that is the only reason I'm changing. Like, I need someone who's going to take my cycling from where it is now to where it needs to be and beyond. So, if all three things stay the same, that is a net negative. That was a waste of time. It was a waste of time, effort, resources. No good. If swim and run improve and bike stays the same, also net negative, right? Because I feel like no matter what, if as long as I just keep working on my swimming and my running, I will like that will just get better. I feel like I am naturally a pretty good runner, and swimming, it's just a time thing. Like I'm only ever going to be so good at swimming, right? I'm not going to start ripping out 1 minute 100s, but I could swim in the 130s. I feel pretty comfortably for an Ironman distance, over the next couple of years. So if swim and run improve, bike stays the same or decreases, also net negative. So we're 2 out of 3 net negative. However, swim and run stay the same, bike improve, big win, big positive. And then any combination of the others with cycling going up and one regressing, also I would have taken as a positive. So realistically, we had 3 out of 5 positive. As long as cycling moved forward, there was a 60% chance that it was the right decision. And a lot of you guys are probably like, what the fuck? Like, why are you doing math? But like, it is just it's just a math equation, right? Like if there was only a 10% chance changing coaches made me a better athlete, like the numbers are not in your favor. It just doesn't make sense from a cost analysis perspective. But doing those numbers, I was like, cool, I have approximately a 60% chance of improving in the trajectory I want to improve. Now, to the degree of which I want to improve, and that becomes a completely different question, right? Like, I don't know. That's something you can't add to the equation, is like how much of a better cyclist you can be. And let's just use arbitrary numbers. Let's just say I averaged 100 watts for an Ironman, my last Ironman. Let's just say that 100 watts for my last Ironman. And I want to become a better cyclist. Well, if I average 101 watts in Port Macquarie, technically I'm a better cyclist, right? But I want to average 200, 210, 220 watts, somewhere in that window. And it's like, okay, can he or can that person or can the math equation predict that? No, it can't. So that's where the element of risk comes in. But I deemed that an educated risk. That especially Dan, like I've had a couple of really good chats with Dan on the podcast, and I think he's a pretty straight shooter, and he spoke so highly of Clayton and what he's done for him. So that might have been the vote that's kind of got me over the line in terms of just where he's at and what he's achieved. So cheers, Dan. I know I deliberately didn't prompt it to you that way because I didn't want there to be any bias or any sort of... I'm very, very good at that. I'm very good at getting the information I want without asking the questions you necessarily think I'm asking. But I think you might have been the swing vote. So I made a calculated and educated change, and I have to say I started with Clayton in, I've got Training Peaks up here, guys. I'd say mid-January. So what's that? We're at the end of Feb now. End of Feb? Yeah, end of Feb. Jesus, the year's getting away, boys and girls. Let's just say I've done 6 weeks of training with Clayton, which isn't a huge amount. I have completed every session bar one swim in that 6 weeks. And I have to say everything's improved. Swimming, the least, right? Obviously, because there is the least room for improvement if we just look at time in investable time to elicit improvement. You can, if you're only swimming 3 times a week, you're only going to get so much better. Adult swimmer, didn't start swimming till I was 29. Only going to be so good, right? But yesterday I swam. Wednesday. Yeah, yesterday. Or you guys are listening to this on Friday. So on Wednesday, I swam a bit over 3Ks, 138 pace, and that was super comfortable, right? Like that was like Ironman effort. So yeah, really happy with that. The run, I'd say the run is it runs a little bit different because I'd say Clayton definitely does a lot more high intensity stuff. Uh, Guy does a lot more tempo stuff. And again, none of this is a reflection on coaching quality or anything like that. One's good, one's bad, nothing like that. It is just like different methodologies, right? Guy does a lot of easy work and tempo work. I'd say Clayton does a lot of easy work, like a lot of low and high end, zone two threshold. We do a good chunk of tempo, but like I'd say Guy does a lot more tempo on if you were to put it on a scale. So I haven't come to a consensus on the run yet. Right now, I would say it is the same or slightly better. But the right now, and again, I haven't started sinking into some good, marathon specific blocks or anything like that, which I'm assuming are coming up quite quickly. I haven't actually asked Clayton, but running at that 4:55 minute pace is relatively effortless, but it was also relatively effortless 4 months ago. So I can just do it a bit longer now, but that's also, just general fitness. So swim improved, run right now the same, but I will update that when we start doing some more relevant workouts. Not relevant for comparison, if that makes sense. Like right now, Guy's workouts and Clayton's workouts are apples and oranges. It's just like you can't compare them. Again, not saying one's better, one's worse. It's just very, very different. So until the tempo work picks up a little bit with Clayton, I won't compare the run. I'm just going to say right now it feels about the same. I feel like I'm a decent runner. The bike, the whole reason I went there, I'd say it's improved dramatically. My FTP significantly higher. I'm holding my zone 2 numbers. Like I'd say that was been not the biggest thing, but definitely the thing I've enjoyed the most is with the zone 2 stuff. Clayton generally prescribes a percentage of FTP that's like upper zone 2, and it's just like sit at. Yeah, so my FTP is about 250. It might be like sit at 170 watts for 2 hours, right? And like it's just no breaks, no nothing. While Guy might be more like just ride easy, and that could be anything from 130, 140 watts up to 170, 180, something like that, right? So it's just different. Like I getting the there's. I'm just trying to be very precise with my words, guys. There isn't a lot of garbage with Clayton. You get in, you get to work, and you get out. Like that. That's very much how the sessions feel, which I really appreciate. I really like that. While I'd say that, yeah, I'm just going to leave it there. So the bike has improved dramatically. I would say these like harder zone 2 sessions have really, really sped up that engine building, which I love. A lot of stuff really above FTP, which is great. So like just for example, this past week I did 4 times 90 seconds, 2 rounds at 120% of FTP, right? So that's sort of sitting at 300 watts for 90 seconds, Never would have touched that in a previous, never would have even seen 300 watts in a previous Ironman build, not once. So like I said, a lot more tempo work in my previous build. So like sitting at 190, 195 watts, 180 to 195 watts, something like that would be like a pretty normal workout. Wouldn't normally see, a few sessions you'd get to 220 sort of thing. But even today, for example, we had 6 by 6 minutes at 225 watts, which is with a super low cadence. So significantly harder sessions on the bike. Like this is the whole reason I came across, was just I want to be a better cyclist. I didn't know how to be a better cyclist. I kind of had an idea in my head of like what I need to go to that next level. I was like, I need to raise my FTP. I need to get stronger, and I need to just spend time on the bike. So, if I look at this week, I did an hour session, which was the VO2 session, 120% of FTP. Did an hour and a half today, which was the strength-based session. I've got 3 hours tomorrow, and then I've got 4.5 hours on Saturday. So that's 7.5, 8.5, 9. That's 10.5 hours we're spending on the bike, all with super, super specific, which, again, with my math brain, I love. And that's like, so like, it is a tough thing for me to talk about, guys. Like, I don't like necessarily changing coaches. I don't like, which is weird, right? Because, and again, this a Clayton thing that he said in the first podcast. If you guys go back, he goes, people don't want to leave coaches because they build friendships, and they're worried about hurting people. I'm paraphrasing it, and they're worried about hurting people's feelings. And it's like, realistically, this is a business decision. It's like, I need you to go from, okay, let me rephrase it, because some people go, business decision, what do you mean? If you ask someone to build you a house, and you paid them to build you a house, and you came, and they said, yeah, be ready in 3 months, you come back 3 months later, and they've just built a shed, you'd be like, what the fuck is this? Like, I'm not paying you, and I'm going to someone else, I'm going to another builder. I feel like it's very similar with coaching. It's like, I need to find someone who can get me to do a sub 10 hour Ironman. Are you the person? Yes, I am. Awesome. Where it gets convoluted is how much you communicate with these people. You communicate with them every day. Like, you learn, like, you have surprisingly deep conversations with coaches in terms of, like, I'm not doing well mentally, like, I'm so tired, like, Mrs. is angry at me, whatever it is. Anything that can affect training, you end up talking to coaches about. So it's just, it just muddies the water. And anyway, something I've been really, really working on myself is being very precise with my thoughts, and really sort of trying to understand, when I think about something, am I thinking about it logically, or am I letting emotion crowd my judgment? And I felt like I was letting emotion crowd my judgment when it came to the coaching decision. I was like, again, I go back to math, and I was like, these are the numbers I need to hit to do a sub 10 hour Ironman. And I was like, why are we not training at these numbers? And for whatever reason, it's like, whether you can't hit them, whether I don't think you're capable of hitting them, whatever it is, doesn't matter. We're not training at the numbers. So then I said, so I didn't say, excuse me, that was incorrect. I thought to myself, I would much rather find a coach, and this could be completely incorrect, but this was the thought process I had, just to pull back the curtain for you guys. I would much rather find a coach who would listen to my goal and go, okay, you want to achieve that goal. This is what we need to do. This is the plan. This is the structure. These are the numbers you need to hit, and put it out there. If I cannot hit that, then that is a reflection on myself, rather than a reflection on the coaching, or a reflection on a decision. Like, I don't want someone to make a decision for. I don't want someone to go, you cannot do that, like, you're not ready for that. I want someone to go, here's the work, go and do it. If I come back and I'm like, well, I can't run, and I'll just say, I can't run 5 minutes per kilometer. Okay, well, you can't run a 3.5 hour marathon. I can't produce 36 kilometers an hour on the bike for an hour, let alone 5. Okay, well, you can't do a 5 hour Ironman bike. I can't swim. What's the math? I can't swim a minute 40 per 100. Okay, well, you can't swim 63 minutes and swim. So what do you want to do? I'd much rather someone break it down to me like that than just make the decision for me, which really, like, it really frustrates me. And yeah, I think that's I'll just quickly wrap up the coaching stuff with this. I'm super grateful for everything Guy did for me. I would not be the athlete I am today. I would not be in the great spot I am mentally. I would not be in the great spot I am with my partner. So many things he contributed just outside of coaching to my life, and it almost sounds like a fucking breakup or something. Jesus Christ. It is definitely not that, because we're still cool. Like, still talk to him, all that sort of stuff. But it was just time for a change. Like, things had just plateaued, and it was super awesome, and I'm grateful for all the work he put into me and the time and effort and everything, and just went for something different. And like I said to you guys earlier about the math equation, right now, the math is paying off. Right now, the 60% decision is paying dividends. So the bike has improved dramatically. Swim is improving a little bit, but relative, I'd say quite well. And run right now, we don't know. I'm a good runner, a relatively good runner. So until we do some more relevant sessions to compare, I don't know where my fitness is at with the run. I just know I'm in relatively good run shape. All that being said, let's just talk about some training quickly. So I'll just take you guys through from where, because we're at 45 minutes right now. I wanted these episodes to be a little bit shorter, but I feel like that was important to talk about. Show you guys a little bit behind the curtain in terms of the way I think, the way I process stuff, why I do certain things, the way I do them, etc. Cool. So if we just scroll back. So starting at the end of January, I'd say this is week 1 of Ironman prep. I'll just take you through the numbers quickly. 14 hours, 20 minutes total training. Total CSS, 1200. Swim duration. Oh, and just by the way, guys, my TSS, it's a little bit up and down, mostly because my threshold things weren't set properly, and I don't really want to go back and recalculate it all. I have done it for most of the sessions, but take it with a grain of salt. It's normally out by 1 to 200, at least for the first couple of weeks, and then it goes back in. But I've marked it, so I'll let you guys know when the TSS is back in. First week, swim 8.3 kilometers, bike 165 kilometers, and run 43.2 kilometers. A relatively cruisy session, or cruisy week, excuse me. It's a good amount of tempo work and some interval stuff, nothing too crazy. Week 2 of prep was 16 hours total training. TSS, again, 1100. Swim 8.3 kilometers, excuse me. Bike 172 and run 46. So everything, just bike and run ticked up a little bit. Swim stayed the same. Following week, 17 hours, 22 minutes. Lionel Sanders would call that low volume. TSS 1100 again. Swim distance 7Ks, bike distance 214, run distance 54.7. So a nice little jump in the run there. What was the jump in the bike? About a 40-50 kilometer jump in the bike as well. So a nice little bump up. Had a first sort of, you guys, if you watch the 6.5 hour training video on YouTube, the key bike was from that video. So it was 4 hours, 20 minutes, 118 kilometers with a run off, and then we went for a swim. So that was a big jump in the bike there. Still not really doing much, I'd say, race specific stuff, but I mean, on the bike we are, but the run is it's still pretty cruisy on the run. Cool. This is last week's training. This is the only week that I've missed. I missed one session, which was a swim, and that's because of poor planning. I had some stuff with work, and just my pool is 40-minute drive away, so I kind of live semi-rurally. I mean, a lot of you guys would consider it rurally, but I consider it semi-rurally. So I missed one swim. But anyway, total training time, 19 hours, 5 minutes. So we nearly cracked the 20. TSS 1090, swim distance 5.6. So I was meant to do another 3.5, so that would have taken us just over 10, but 5.6. Bike was 234 kilometers and 9.5 hours. Run duration 55.5 kilometers and 5 hours 13 minutes. So if we look at that, you've gone from 214 to 234 on the bike, and I mean, there's only a 1 kilometer change on the run. This brings us on to the current week, and then we'll wrap things up, guys. So on schedule to do 19 to 20 hours. Currently, as it's currently constituted here on Thursday, I've done 2 swims, 2 runs, 2 bikes, and 2 strength sessions, and we are at 6.3 kilometers on the swim. Bike, we're currently at 69.5 kilometers, but I've got 2 big bikes left this week. I've still got 7.5 hours of riding to do. And run, we're at 20.7 kilometers. But I've got a run off on Saturday and then a long run on Sunday. So that'll be 24, another sort of 30K. So that'll put us somewhere in the 50s again. So that's where everything's at. I've got Ironman Geelong in 70.3 Geelong in 3 weeks. I haven't spoken to Clayton about it yet. I don't know if we're going to taper. I don't know exactly what is going to happen, or what his plan is. I don't really want to taper. I don't really have any desire. Like, I don't need to run it or race it hard. I just want to keep working. I just want to keep checking those boxes, and I just want to keep. I just want to keep training for Port. But I'll do whatever he recommends. If he thinks I should taper and freshen up, and we use it as like a mini deload, then awesome. If he's just like, nah, train all the way through, then that's what we'll do. But I would say, actually, I have no idea. I'm not going to say. I was going to predict what he will do, but I have no idea. So that's the first episode, guys. Again, I just sort of chucked everything out there, saw what stick. This recording went significantly better than the first recording. I'll have to say that. But I think that's everything. I feel like this was a step in the right direction in terms of an idea, a concept. The following episodes will be more training, right? I'll break down the sessions actually as we go through them, like each session individually, or at least interesting sessions. I'm not going to be like 12 kilometer zone 2 jog, and this is my heart rate for this many kilometers, blah, blah, blah. But like interesting sessions, I'll give you guys a bit of a look behind the curtain. And then, any questions you guys have got, hit me with them. Let me know. Anything I can do to make this more interesting for you guys, more relevant. Even I'm happy to answer, like I said, answer questions. Anything that, even if it's not necessarily about my training, if it's just about triathlon in general. If there's someone you want on, please let me know down in the comments. Message me on Instagram. Hey, can you get this guy or girl? I've been pretty good. I'd say I think I've probably got 100% strike rate with people requesting guests and me getting them. So if there's someone you want, and don't fucking come out and be like, get Jan Fredino, because I'm only one man here, mate, just out in me little quiet country town. So, I'm just fucking with you guys. But please like and subscribe, all the good things. Leave a 5-star rating, whatever audio platform you listen to. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe. All the Instagrams are down there. If you could follow me on Instagram, follow the Triathlon Lab on Instagram, all of that stuff. And guys, thank you. I appreciate it. If you listened to the whole episode, thank you. If you didn't, and you just didn't like me rambling on, fair enough. Next week, you'll have Sam Askidori on. He is the young fellow out of Tasmania who has the Kona swim course record, and he's about to race Ironman New Zealand this weekend. And guess what? He'll probably break the swim record on that as well. So that'll be a good episode. I really like talking to Sam, and we're probably going to get him on again in a couple of weeks to recap his Ironman New Zealand. But that's everything, guys. Again, like and subscribe, do all the things, follow on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And we're on TikTok too. I don't really use TikTok. We just post the reels. But if you're on TikTok, check it out. Yeah, I'll talk to you soon, guys. See you next week. Bye.